Morning, everybody. Welcome to Sunrise Early this Monday morning. I'm Chamberlain Uso.
Good morning and welcome. I'm Kayla Magwa.
Well, there must be something about this Monday morning I'm not aware of yet. Anyway, good morning and welcome. I'm Ayo Makinde.
Oh yeah, let's have a look. It's 23 degrees centigrade here in Abuja. Lovely scenery, so lovely weather as well, so you can plan. But I'll have a look at that this morning. So wherever you are, should be lovely, I reckon.
Well, we're looking at Kebbi State this morning, and that river is called Matanfada. And this is the river where the Arungu festival holds. Yes, I love the festival. Do you remember what I told you Arungu means?
Well, I'll go back to school. I'm
afraid you lost him.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can now. Do you remember what Arungu means?
Well, Arungu, the only thing I remember right now about Arungu is the fishing festival. What else is there?
Well, Arungu, like I told you, it's a rallying call. Let's gather in one place, and it also means the pagan people of Arungu. So this particular river is a very important river to this entire community. The festival is not just about fishing. They do canoe racings. They do art festivals. There's a museum not too far from here. There's a lot that happens in this place. I remember in 2020 when President Buhari actually went for the Arungu fishing festival, just so, and that was after 10 years of the thing not holding. But you see, it's a festival that brings people from around the world and showcases the rich cultural heritage of Kebbi State and Arungu in particular. It's a very symbolic river, a very important one for the people, and one that has been responsible for the livelihood of so many people in Kebbi State. Remember, they are mostly fishermen in that part of the country.
Well, what you haven't told us, as usual...
And they said that Chamberlain should come. So Chamberlain will come for the festival. He will climb the calabash. It's calabash that he used to do the festival.
Let's hear him too.
Well,
you must talk.
You're asking if you can hear him. We can hear him.
Well, you can hear me now.
We've been hearing you all day.
I'll pay
just
money.
like Taylor doesn't want us to hear you.
Kayla,
I'll pay money for Chamberlain to do it.
Kayla, don't worry. I mean, we know when Chamberlain doesning want to get involved in the particular matter, or he doesn't have an answer yet. But but something you haven't told us,
I'm not a fisherman.
something you haven't told us, Kayla, is the meaning of Matanfada. You would normally tell us the meanings, remember? So I'm waiting for that.
Yes, yes, I know. It means wife of the palace.
Wife? Did I hear wife?
Yeah. Yes.
A spouse?
Spouse, yes.
Okay.
The wife of the palace.
Okay. All right. Well, that's all I gotta say. The only thing that I wonder though is why the color is brown. Well, maybe because of the loads of activities that happen in the river, right, Kayla?
Yes, indeed. It's constantly in use, and of course, when the river is constantly in use, it gets really muddy. And then there's also the fact that with climate change and everything going on, it's actually reducing in size. So a lot is going on. I think more interventions are necessary. So this river remains viable for the people of Kebbi State.
Well, almost certainly something to... go ahead, Chamberlain.
Yeah, I mean, I hear what all of you have said, but there's several other scenarios that will play out today. Incidentally, lovely scenery there. I remember the dams in this country, how the role they play with the power sector, the hydro, electricity dams. Well, energy is also in the mix this morning, and probably for a lot this week. We understand, having seen the NNPC statement yesterday, the Presidential Power Initiative also considering this $800 million investment or release that fund to ensure they boost the power infrastructure. So a lot of energy topics, energy is in focus this morning as well. Will they get it right? The president is in China, also trying to see how he could get a lot of help in that particular sector. So yes, indeed, several scenarios making the rounds this morning, guys.
I mean, this NNPC situation is one that we need clarifying on. Everyone has been talking about it. We heard them talk about it on the morning brief, but it's something that we have to keep talking about. Mr. Falana was on Politics, Sunday Politics yesterday, talking about it. This sector needs to become a little bit more transparent so we can understand what's going on. There were worrying scenarios yesterday that Mr. Falana brought up. The fact that the trucks that are carrying the tankers that are taking this petrol still don't have trackers.
Well,
which is a very scary idea. The idea that he says he's taking the fuel to Zaria. You say, okay, a safe trip. Who told you he's going to get there? If a tracker, and then there are contracts that have been given.
To who?
Contracts that have been given, multiple contracts, according to Mr. Falana yesterday. Contracts have been given to companies to put trackers on these cars, on these trailers, and those it hasn't been done. It happened for 1 year, and then after that, we just didn't hear about it anymore. And I love that he brought it up yesterday on the program. So a lot needs to be done to clear. We need to understand. One question I've been seeing people ask a lot about the NNPC, and I heard Jeffrey talk about it on the morning brief this morning. Well, people are asking, if you're able to post this amount of profit, how are you still owing? So maybe there's something we don't understand.
No, of course, there's a lot more to that. It's not that straight.
Yeah.
But the thing about that is, I haven't seen any of the documents, so I can't speak to that. But maybe he would have for him to speak to that. But, and also, in fairness to the corporation, they did invite, I think they had this, they called it World Press Briefing and things like that. And we did tell them there categorically that they needed to speak up a lot more. And I think the chief financial officer did say to journalists at the time that they seem to have learned their lessons and that they will now speak more. So that is a part where we'll now thought, okay, Nigerians will hold you responsible or accountable, saying, since you say you'll speak more, they want you to speak more and explain a lot more to the people so people can understand.
And just so people can, just so we can remind everyone, September is here. This is the month that Port Harcourt Refinery and the Kaduna Refinery, and I think one other one, they are supposed to be working this month. They had moved it. It's been moving from month to month to month. So this is September. Are those refineries going to be up and running? Are we going to see this actually happen? Because the promises for these refineries to start running, I've been hearing these promises for a very long time. Is this the one that they're going to keep?
Okay, so time will tell. But right now, Ayo is going to take us through some of the dailies this morning.
The real reason for fuel scarcity is on the front pages of some of the dailies this morning. Let's begin with the Guardian newspaper. Fuel price hike imminent as NNPCL admits $6.8 million debt and supply strain. That story is on page 6. No end in sight to petrol scarcity as economy grasps for breath. That's on the front page of the Vanguard newspaper. We don't have money to import fuel, according to NNPC. Admits $6 billion debt to petrol suppliers. Subsidy to hit 5.4 trillion naira in December 2024. We can't borrow anymore to sustain importation, according to the federal government. We cannot import because of forex scarcity, others. That's from the marketers, as fuel scarcity bites harder. While Nigeria's economy continues to struggle, that's from NECA. Asks government to focus on productive reforms across key sectors. All of that is on page 5 of the Vanguard newspaper this morning. The front page of the Nigerian Tribune has the same story today. Petrol scarcity may worsen nationwide. NNPC admits owing suppliers, says financial strain on company poses threat to sustainability of supply. List NNPCL on stock exchange now, according to Atiku. Alleges oil company providing cover for subsidy payment. That's on page 8 of the paper. Daily Trust features the same story. Petrol price may rise as NNPCL admits financial strain. Why hike is inevitable. That's from experts. Atiku demands listing of oil firm on stock exchange. On the inside pages of the paper is where you find that story today. The Nigerian News Direct. Fuel scarcity to linger as NNPC Limited owes up to debt owed suppliers as Nigerians criticize FG. Independent marketers sell at 950 naira per litre. NNPC lacks funds needed to rebuild nation's aging pipeline. That's from a minister. Find out who on page 21. Something related to that is all about the power sector this morning. This Nigerian newspaper urged you to invest $800 million in power sector. Minister Adilabo says generation capacity will increase to 6,000 megawatts by December. Laments 59% of industries in Nigeria are off grid due to epileptic supply. Remember that story about the 18-year exam age limit? It's at the bottom of the page. FG play with crisis, says Sanu. Policy will cause setback in the education sector. That's from stakeholders. Find the details of that story on the inside pages of the paper. Daily Independent, Nigerian airlines banned from flying to US. Experts offer solution. FAA delists Nigeria from Category 1 status countries. Hope of air peace. Other aspiring indigenous carriers dashed. Cabo Verde, Rwanda, 5 other African countries retain status. Interesting. The details you find continue on the inside pages. New Telegraph. Tinubu declares war on bandits, orders military chiefs to relocate to Sokoto. Residents celebrate president's directive. Story is on page 4 of the paper today. At the Abuja Inquirer, Abuja tops ransom demand. That's according to a report. This is about insecurity. Demand removal of DPO. Others. Buhari residents recount horror ordeals. That story has its details on the inside pages of the paper today. The Leadership newspaper has Northern Southern elders disagree over new constitution. Afenifere Ohaneze, Middle Belt want new constitution. ACF, PANDEF seek amendment, power sharing. Details on page 4. Business Day has this one, calls for market price draw over petrol prices. The details of that story you'll find on the inside pages of the paper this morning. And these are the papers we have for you today.
Well, the one that naturally stands out for me is something that concerns young people, the people in the future, the people we call leaders of tomorrow. And that's what's on the front page of this Nigerian newspaper today, particularly at the bottom of the page, where the paper reports that 18 years exam age limit, FG playing with crisis, says Sanu, and the policy, according to stakeholders, will cause setback in education sector. Now, the announcement has been made. Has it become a policy? That's one thing. On the other hand, a number of papers, if you do a simple Google search, will tell you how divided a number of people are. In fact, the one paper says that parents are divided over that particular policy. Some experts, Sanu, and a number of other, interested parties are divided on that matter. But then there are those who believe that this policy is not new. It dates back, even an educationist told us on Saturday, it dates back into the 80s. The problem is we have always applied some of our policies in breach. Now, most people, today, young people, they leave secondary school at about, say, age 16. 15, 16 in a number of cases. So what happens to them? That's the question that we need to ask. And secondly, the announcement has been made. What is the reason for it? Part of the things that the educationists say is that a child, a young person, a teenager of like 15, 16 is not morally and socially educated enough to get into the mix of what university education would bring. That's a good point, perhaps. But the question is, what do they do when they leave secondary school between age 15 and 16 and they have to wait until 18 before they write WAEC and then proceed into the university? It's a question that, perhaps maybe the Minister of Education or the Ministry of Education entirely would be able to come and educate Nigerians about. So parents who are already happy that finally my child is out of school and she's out of secondary school or he's out of secondary school, they're now going into the university. Now, I can ease it. So what else? What happens now? Dear Minister, please give us some education on that. That's my take this morning, guys.
All right. Well, Yeah, we'll have our guest right here, so we're going to go right on to him. He joins us right here in the studio. Mr. Ibrahim Abdullahi is the Deputy National Publicity Secretary of the PDP. Good morning, and thank you for coming on today.
Thank you. My pleasure having here.
So, a lot happened over the weekend. Your party was right there in the news, different states. You know that already. Rivers, Ogun, all talking points, major talking points. Bauchi somehow came into the fray. So many are wondering, oh, okay, of course, some people are not exactly happy with the way some things are. But this morning, we understand that several meetings holding to see how they could address some of these issues. But right off the cuff, what's going on? Was this how it was planned to go?
No, certainly it won't be the way it was planned. It just came up as a necessity because when you are managing issues to do with people, you are expected to have such a development. Managing even a home front, Chamberlain, has proven difficult over history for a husband to be able to manage the family effectively. Sometimes if the woman is in charge of affairs, maybe she is the breadwinner of the family, you know, it's always a contending issue. And so you can then imagine when you now upscale it to the level of managing a country. And a political party like ours that lost election for almost a decade now, would be expected to confront this kind of challenges. But certainly, like I've always argued, PDP has the capacity to be able to navigate itself out of this, you know, quagmire. You know that it's the only political party that has remained with the color, name, texture, and all of the objectives that it came up with in 1998. All the other four that were formed together with the PDP in 1998 have either fizzled in the thin air or metamorphosed into, you know, some other platforms, including the ruling party. But PDP still remains its name, itself, and everything. So we are certainly going to come out of the quagmire. But certainly we are confronted with a lot of challenges, but it's something we can be able to storm.
Well, I know it was PDP that came up with that word. It's a family affair.
Yes.
You know, because now the PDP Governors Forum,
Sure.
that after that held, you heard the governor of Rivers State, how he referred to whether you're from Bauchi, it doesn't matter about the party structure. So people wonder the leadership of the party at the national level. It just appears as though this is one very, very heavy bone to deal with.
Well, yeah, it's not something we were not aware of before it happened. You know, the nature of Wiki, like, excuse me, like everybody will confess in this country, has been that of assertiveness. He's one person who believes he can say anything that he wants to say and get away with it. But it was not a comforting development, I must confess to you, even within the secretariat. None of us was happy to hear that, and the entire PDP family was not comfortable with that narrative Wiki was putting. We do know that we have the capacity to overcome that problem. It's not one person that would dictate for the party. Nobody has that capacity. It's, again, bringing me back to what I earlier stated about our capacity to navigate our problems. And nobody has the monopoly of power or violence, you know, to unleash on the party. The party is stronger than any of its members.
So when the Bauchi governor was said to have made that statement, what was he supposed to do then? Was he supposed to just watch and the party leadership didn't seem to say anything at the time? Or was it okay with them?
No, we're not happy about it. But you know, the maturity with the party is what has informed the silence from the governor. He's not expected to be on the street as well, joining issues with one of ours. You know, we believe Wike is ours. Has he at any time come out to say that he is refuting or denouncing his membership of the PDP? No.
But what I meant was, what was the party's position on the statement he was referring to, that the Bauchi governor said they were going to take the party structure and give to somebody else, maybe the governor?
I know, that's not exactly the position of... Wike is not in the position to make that statement. It is within the powers of the party.
Did Bauchi governor not say so?
No, the party, the Bauchi state governor was expected to speak the way he did, which is that River State is one of ours, and Governor Fubara is in our family. Therefore, you will not expect... Don't forget the genesis of this issue. About a month ago, when they had a forum meeting in Enugu, they came all out, and the journalist besieged him as the chairman of the Governors Forum. And he did say at that meeting that we are not losing Wike as our friend, we are not losing Fubara either. We will do everything possible to ensure that the two of them remain within the family of the PDP. So here you have to strike a balance to ensure that nobody is scattered in this issue. What we are saying is that the governor is the chief executive officer of his state and is the leader of the party in Rivers, as far as we know. Anything short of that, you will not expect the chairman of the Governors Forum to go saying.
I mean,
But
there were some things that Wike said that I really want to be able to get a straightforward answer from the party itself.
Yeah.
He said, "I will make trouble in the states."
He was referring to something.
Yes.
That
he said that.
That probably, and it was clear for everybody to understand that the governor of Bauchi State is interfering in the determination of the Congress in his state of Rivers. And I don't know if Wike will be fair to himself to expect the governor of Bauchi, who is the chairman of the Governors Forum and the leader of this PDP going forward, to now keep quiet in the issues affecting Rivers State, because that's one of our states. And we worked so hard to get that state. Wike should have been able to manage his words carefully. That was a very disappointing remark, and we were not expecting him to say that, and we are not with him on that, to be honest with you.
So you're with the Bauchi governor on this?
Well, we are with Wike, we are with everybody. What we are saying is that was a very, very bad statement for Wike to make, and we are not in support of him.
I mean, we heard the in Rivers State there, one of the things that some of the people who were elected into the Congress, what many of them were talking about was reconciliation.
Yes. We're
trying to see how we can bring it together. Is that even going to be possible with the divide in Rivers? Because this has gone on for a very long time.
Sure.
This is an impasse that even the president waded into, remember?
Yes.
Now, if the thing is still going on, is it something that the PDP thinks they can handle? Is it out of your hands?
We have handled more delicate issues than this.
Such as?
25 years. There are several of them. If you recall the Modi Sharif and Makarfi Kwagmaya, there were such issues. All of the time, PDP has never survived, throughout these 25 years without issues. So this one is one of them, and we are going to go past it. But the issue of reconciliation, Megwa, I want to assure you, it's going to be something that we will address, with seamless effort. You don't forget, 3 weeks back, we just put a committee, 2 of them actually in place, that of reconciliation and discipline. And Nyesom Wike is one of the persons expected to face that committee. And it's headed by no less a person with the elder statesman, Chief Tom Ikimi.
So let's get to that. This committee that he's supposed to face, this disciplinary committee, tell us about it.
Yeah, it's a committee that is going to look into the issues. We've been receiving petition with regards to anti-party or what do you call it, subverting, sabotaging rather the party all through the primaries and leading up to where we are now. And so those petitions have been aggregated.
Petitions against Mr. Wike?
Throughout the country, throughout the 36 states.
Against Mr. Wike?
Of course, yes.
Okay.
Party members felt Wike shouldn't have even gotten to this level still as a member of the PDP. And they've been writing to the party. And that is one thing you will give this leadership as presently constituted. It's been able to navigate the waters by ensuring that sanctioning people without actually giving them the opportunity of fair hearing, which is expected in a democracy, as opposed to what obtained before this leadership came into Umar Ilia-led Damagun, NWC, came into being. In the days of Ioche Ayu, who was taken out by the court, you would recall that what he did was to ensure that every morning he wakes up and slams the hedge hammer on members of the party. And 36 states of the party, throughout the 36 states, before we got to the election, the party was divided seriously against itself. And that was, in part, responsible for our failure.
Speaking about failure,
I was going to say, when is he supposed to see, the committee?
They are already writing him a letter, inviting him over, and that will come.
But you heard this comment about that committee, and several other party BOT members have faulted the constitution of that committee. They say, look, the committee is already skewed, and you expect other people to see them as neutral, but the party seems to be silent on that.
How do you expect a committee to be constituted? In this committee, you have an elder statesman like Chief Tom Ikimi, a former national chairman of a party that ruled this country, a former minister of foreign affairs, even in the days of the military, a consistent Democrat that has remained dogged and tenacious. I don't see anybody not respecting him. And it is membered by people who have also carved niches for themselves. Ministers, senators, governors. So this committee is expected to be cowed by an individual.
You haven't read what Chief Bode George has said about the same committee?
Hey, that's an entitled opinion of Chief Bode George, and to which he is entitled.
But there's no date yet for when...
No, it has commenced sitting. Actually, it's commenced meeting, and it's already reviewing the approaches.
Another scenario, Ogun State.
Yes.
The chairman of the party in Ogun State is accusing the governorship candidates for the last election in the state of being high-handed and running the party the way he wants, and that was why the party lost the elections, and at this time, they will not have it. So that's another thing brewing there.
Yes, all the states have issues, one state or the other, including myself talking to you. I ran for the governorship of Kebbi State. I was not comfortable with even the NWC approach to my aspiration. as at that time, because some of the things I expected I was going to benefit as a member of the NWC, I didn't get it. But it will not stop me from being a party member. I expressed my misgivings. I came first runner-up in the primaries, actually. And I was doing all of that because I would not subscribe to a view where somebody will leave his party or take part in the primaries of his party in the afternoon, and in the evening he is in PDP. And then he will now come and take the ticket of my own party that I've labored for decades to keep. That's an aberration. That's an abnormality. And we went through that. And I'm still here speaking for this party. So you remain a statesman, you remain a committed party man if you are sincerely committed to the party. Otherwise, we will just find ourselves, moving from the right and wrong.
But now that the party has said, the people in the state are saying, look, they will not allow that happen. That he will not get that governorship ticket the next election. They will make sure that happens. So,
it is for the people to determine. If it is his turn to get it and the people are with him, no one can stop him. An individual opinion will not constitute the views of the people. The chairman of the party is one of the millions in the states who are affiliated to the party. If the party and the preponderance majority of the people in Ogun State are still with this individual, they will get the ticket. And nobody stops it. That's the beauty of democracy, Chamberlain.
With everything that's going on in the PDP, there are people who believe that the party just doesn't have its act together and is not ready to face APC, and with a growing Labour Party as well. Does the PDP, in your view, are you in a better position right now? Are you in a better position now than you were, let's say, 3 years ago?
Sure.
Or is it even worse now
when
it comes to cohesion in this party?
You see, that is the essence of this NWC, and that is the commendation that we would be allowed to take. At the risk of sounding immodest. We've been able to, for the last 1 year plus, since you left the scene, unite the party. You've not seen us suspending people like it was the case during IU. In the build-up to the election, a lot of people felt aggrieved because of his approach, including this Wike, and that was the genesis of the problem. The leadership of IU should have been magnanimous enough to approach Wike with a sane mind, to console him for the loss, and to find a way of
placating. Those sort of five of them?
Five of them, of course. Wike is the leader. So if you get Wike, you would have gotten all those five. And that's why some of us in-house felt it was not proper for the sacrifices Wike put for this party, for his outstanding performance, as one of our governor for the 8 years he did. Some of the approaches that we put in ensuring that we manage the aftermath of the primaries was most unbecoming on our part. And that's why this leadership is saying, no, as opposed to that approach, let us continue to placate and then massage the egos of all our party members. Because you could see now the option of taking him away by the APC is there. If you continue to go like that, you will soon wake up and realize that there's nobody left in the party. We've lost Shema. We've lost Kwankwaso. We've lost Peter Obi. All of these people, imagine if they were in the party, if we would not have gone to win election. This APC said they have defeated us with 1 million plus. Just one of these governors, one of these names I mentioned, would have covered that gap for us and we would have been in power today. And certainly Nigerians would not have been confronted with this despair and despondency in the land.
So are you trying to get those same names you just mentioned back, or are you building new people?
Discussion is discussion is ongoing. You've seen
with him?
Certainly, you've seen Peter Obi discussing with Atiku. You've seen Peter Obi meeting with Erufai. You've seen party management is a very difficult thing, Chamberlain, and we are doing the best we can in this circumstance to navigate ourselves out of the quagmire we have found ourselves. But rest assured, there will be a light at the end of the tunnel. We have learned our lesson the bitter way.
I know it's far off. It's not even far. Politicians don't think it's too far. So what am I saying? So what do you see happening? Yes, he's having conversations, as you also have said now. So in the event that he comes back into the party, Peter Obi,
yes,
what then happens?
The bridge will cross when we get to it. I know where you are going.
I know where I was going.
This is something like that bridge that cut off the community.
It's a bridge we will cross when we get to it.
No,
now it's too early in the day.
Wait for you to get. We were looking at Atiku, and then you want Peter to be there. Who's going to?
There are other names. You have had.
I'm interested in just these two.
Yes.
So what's going to happen?
Yes.
What's your plan?
One of them will concede for the other, and then we will have a direction. Our concern as a party and to these people that I've mentioned is to ensure that we salvage Nigerians from this despair and despondency, the twin maladies of hunger and poverty, and frightening insecurity in the land. You could see cluelessness and ineptitude on the part of these people managing the country. And to these people, salvaging Nigeria out of it is more important than their individual ambitions.
So if Atiku says, look, because some comments attributed to him says, he'll contest as long as he can, as long as he's healthy. So
it is a possibility. If he says so, we will then see how we will manage the situation, like we have always managed it.
No.
On the other hand, you had him. On the other hand,
he didn't manage it properly last time. That's why he lost out.
Then the lessons we have learned will help us in managing it better this time. But one thing I will tell you, the same Atiku is saying, if it is better for him to get Nigeria out of this hopelessness, he will do so. That is a statement. It means that if...
How do you mean if it's better for him?
He recently said
or letting other people contest?
He must not be in the race. Atiku is saying that it's an entitlement to him as a Democrat. The Constitution provides that he could contest at any time. So what he's trying to tell you is that no ceiling inhibiting him from contesting. That is his fundamental democratic rights. But he's not saying that he would force it on the throat of either the party or the country. But he's saying that he would, as long as he remains healthy and within the provisions of the law, extant provision of the law, is entitled to contest, and he will contest. But certainly where you want to corner me, I'm telling you clearly, Peter Obi is suitably qualified. He can aspire, and we will support him if he gets the ticket. Atiku is suitably qualified, and if he gets the ticket, we will also rally behind him and give him the desired support to salvate Nigeria out of this.
What about you? Are you going to contest again for government?
Oh, sure. It goes without saying, like, just like Atiku. I'm young, you could see, and vibrant. So I could take it again.
Well, there you go. Never say never. That's what we hear these days. Ibrahim Abdullah is the Deputy National Chairman of National Publicity Secretary of the PDP. Thank you for coming on. All the best to you.
My pleasure. Thank you so much.
All right, well, back in a moment. Stay on with us. Welcome back. Well, we're joined now by Professor Yemi Oke, who is a professor of energy and electricity law. He's also Senior Advocate of Nigeria Designate. Good morning, Prof. Thank you for joining us on the program today. Good to also see that sooner rather than later, you'll be conferred with that prestigious honor. So clearly, we're waiting for that time to come on. So let's talk about this sector. We know that it was just a few days ago that the back and forth between the University of Lagos and EcoDisco went on, and then the wider implications for education, tertiary institutions, after which, about the same time too, the Minister of Power had said that, they're going to allow this subsidy, 50% subsidy for that sector in public schools and, I beg your pardon, in hospitals and universities, public universities. So trying to see how that will work with the discos, with this back and forth. But the minister himself, his identity is in China with the president, where he made this statement that a lot of people have picked up on about the Presidential Power Initiative, this $800 million investment that they plan to do for the infrastructure in that sector. So quite a lot of things going on in that regard. But let's start first of all, before we go to that PPI scheme, on this back and forth between EcoDisco and University of Lagos. The announcement by the minister on that subsidy, do you think that, is that going to, what kind of impact do you see that having? Is it such that schools like UNILAG and the rest will not have to bother themselves or worry that much about this huge electricity bills?
Thank you very much, Chamberlain, for that important question. I recall recently when I was in your studio, there was an intervention when one of the student leaders was brought to your studios to talk about or justify the reason why they had to go on demonstration because of electricity bills and threats to disconnect their schools. And I was able to point out that, well, the schools will continue to pay huge electricity bills because they are not enjoying any form of subsidy. And some of them have been moved from whatever bands they want to band A and the rest. And that would still have implications on the electricity bills and what it charges students. So I now suggested that the student may be prepared to pay slightly more for services rendered by those schools, unless the schools will be able to attract a form of subsidy for domestic consumption from government. And I'm glad that the government is listening, and the only way to alleviate challenges of those poorly funded public institutions, many universities, colleges of education, polytechnic, hospitals, teaching hospitals, and the rest, is to give them a kind of subsidy. I think the discourse too may be engaged to also conceive a bit of subsidy that will go into their corporate social responsibility for public funded institutions, because they're not profit making entities. And so if we encourage these schools and others to also give certain percentage of concession subsidy to those entities, while they also enjoy a bit of subsidy from the federal government, they all should be gone. And I want to recall that the regime of Fashola had come with an idea to enable a number of those public universities, including the University of Lagos, to deploy IPPs. And that will have freed them of reliance on the national grid. And that hasn't happened. I know, I'm aware of huge cost implications that might have. Also, the federal government that's challenged in several ways. But that's the way to go. Honestly, you don't expect a university that's almost a community of its own, like University of Lagos, Ahmadu Bello University in Zaria, and other universities that the University of other universities generally that are public funded, to rely on national grid, because it would be huge demand, it would be major demand for their revenue, and they can't impose school fee for students. Another challenge of crisis as a trial. So the way to go is subsidy. I guess if it's properly channeled out, well applied, so it should bring a bit of support to those public institutions. But again, I also know that the government is concerned that corporate entities are backing up from the national grid. It's expected, just to be expected, because everybody knows that the national grid is challenged, is weak, is dilapidated. And I don't see any serious business player who will rely almost absolutely on national grid. Not even channels, not even major corporate entities. It's the cost is huge, the risk is exorbitant, and then the reliability level is up there. And even homes, I'm worried where they're not talking of homes. A lot of homes now are rejecting grids. They're going off grid. People are going almost exclusively on self-generation, relying on solar and another battery arrangement. So that's a trend, and that will free up some megawatts on the national grid that will be shared or distributed to homes, and that will also bring about efficiency in national grid management. Again, all put together, schools eventually should back up national grid, major companies should back up national grid. And what is available? Of course, I even emphasized that at some point, but we started on a journey that will get us to where we're going in the power sector if we continue to pursue that. As states now begin to attract their own investment, both in the realm of generation, transmission, and distribution, expect a state like Lagos to back off from the national grid and have its own network grid, or have a village grid or gateway grid for those states, stuff like that. So at the end of the day, we have energy in abundance for the country to speed up our national grid.
In addition to that, the government says that they intend to increase the generation capacity to 6,000 megawatts this year, and hence this $800 million investment, which they say they're going to break into two, Lot 1 and Lot 2, and that they were not happy with the rejection of at least distribution by some of the discos, which was almost at 1,800 megawatts. So they want to boost it with this investment. So when you speak about us achieving or closer to our target, Do you see this coming into fruition, 6,000 megawatts capacity at the end of this year with this investment?
What I'm saying, and I will continue to say, is that once you have privatized business effectively and justifiably, then you should have some savings for other purposes. I don't expect that government to be digging its hands into his pocket and only now $800 million for investment in the power sector that is subsidized by the price. I it's like that. We have spent money past without relatively little or nothing to show for it. I'm not going to subscribe to spending another $800 million of direct investment unless my prime minister is not talking about direct investment. The business of the federal government is to attract reasonable investment, to create decent, bankable investment climate, and investment will just be self-sustaining. An average investor knows that making investment is a question of bankability. If your environment is such that I can put my dollar down, I recoup my dollar yield over time. You'll be running on top of each other's head to come to Nigeria. It should be a race down to Nigeria in terms of investment. But if your investment atmosphere is cloudy, if your investment atmosphere is toxic, if you don't respect business deals, don't respect your contractual obligation in figures of other business deals, nobody's going to take you to anything serious. So you now be under a lot of pressure to spending money directly investing. Government should not invest directly. Government should create an environment for investment to thrive.
Yes,
so I don't know that what the minister is saying is by way of government backing or whatever. Don't know.
All right, so Prof, just so we can clarify a few things, the clarification that we're seeing from the government is that this proposed 50% subsidy will apply to 37 federal universities and the 7 teaching hospitals affiliated with them. They've clarified that businesses within these institutions, private businesses, will not be benefiting from this. But there was something you mentioned earlier, which I really wanted you to talk about. You were saying it's most likely that students should get ready to pay more for the services that they're receiving from these schools. Did I get that clearly?
Yes, my position when we intervene in your studio, of course, anchored by Chamberlain and Steele.
So is that something parents should be thinking about right now? The fact that maybe
my position then was that unless, see, the point is this: if federal government is not giving money to these schools will need access to have money. They are challenged in terms of funding, and they have huge electricity bills to pay. They can't run school, they can't run laboratory, they can't run teaching centers without electricity. Apart to teach using chargeable lamp, using phones like that, other embarrassing stuff. And let's say, if government is unwilling to assist those public institutions, then the only alternative would be for schools to introduce a bit of levy to enable them pay electricity bills or run diesel to be able to train students. But now that the federal government is stepping up, of course, in line with its duties and responsibility as a responsible government, say, we can't allow public schools to be in that. Okay, let's give them a bit of palliative subsidy. But the subsidy will apply to certain number of universities of polytechnics and colleges of education, but not businesses that are around those entities. That's okay. What that means is that they will have to separate business ventures those schools. That will easily be done by giving them what is called a checkmate. That those ones will pay full value for the electricity that produced. I'm also sure, I also know that some of these schools have residential quarters for staff and staff pay electricity bills. I don't know whether those staff paying quarters also enjoy that subsidy because they pay for electricity and they also build them as charges and arrangement which only pay. Sometimes You charge them for that part of them. You don't have it, they're not going to enjoy electricity. That's there. The idea of giving direct subsidy to the number of universities and higher institutions is a well proven. The alternative will not be for this to put in work and start imposing some levies on students, which might not be tidy because of the approach of the nation.
Well, Prof, part of the ways in which people have dealt with such situation of lack of electricity, lack of power supply, has been other sectors of energy, such as fuel supply. People take their jerry cans to fuel stations and all, just to get some fuel to power their generators, to power their businesses, and some of these things. In fact, we were told sometime last week that the whole of the UNILAG, University of Lagos, was running on generator, just because of the fact that they were pulled off of the national grid. And it will be amusing to see, maybe the entire, 6 people in the UNILAG going to a fuel station to get fuel to power whatever it is that they need to power. And guess what? They are on those long fuel queues, irrespective of what kind of fuel supply that they need. And I can see that you are smiling about that already. It's unthinkable. Let's just not even think about it. But what the NNPC has also revealed about that one is also very, very pungent, wouldn't you say? Now, for the first time, it would seem, after a lot of denials, you have a lot of fuel, and then here we are now, 6-point-something million or $billion of debt, $6.8 billion of debt being owed to suppliers. And here we are, long queues. How did we get here, and where do we go from here, Prof?
Let me start with the one you mentioned about University of Lagos. Let truth be told, and I'm speaking as a stakeholder. I had a lecture in guidance last week, and I'm not sure whether my lectures were distributed, but that the student would not be in that. I told my students to all put on their lights in their light bulb on their phone, so that it can generate results also that is laptop in classroom. The University of Lagos was actually snapped off the national grid, but actually disconnected. The unfortunate thing in the University of Lagos is that they are not allowed to run the generators and ask them. Individuals, hostels, apartments, residential apartments, hotels, and others are not allowed to run generators in their respective units. So university runs huge generators. They have a good amount of generators that's run at huge cost. So when there's no light, it's very question of alternative for maybe some of our colleagues are so like that. It's a major change. The University of Lagos has been able to schools. I know we don't have that. And due to other and even in the case of University of Lagos, appropriate notices, appropriate regulations for the data procedures were not followed. I'm not here to start raising those issues because appropriate feelings from their hand. When you want to disconnect a university, even private homes, you have disconnection rules. That was one of the University of Lagos is literally high university. So there is a challenge there. The federal government intervention expect not to be, but the way to do it is to put the University of Lagos completely off national by way of mapping. In the private sector, they will have sorted out by those stakeholders. We're not coming to the 6.3 billion naira debt and instruction in where supply actually is unfortunate. It's unfortunate because those debts are not there. You are not fully paid. I'm not sure you are backed by DGs if you abide by bank guarantees, we call them guarantees. But if you are owing a supplier and you keep rolling it over, at some point, the supplier is scared of making subsequent supplies available to you. It's not normal matters. And if you're talking of dollarized debt, in a service or in a sector that is based in Naira, that should be worried about that. Because when you're talking of 6.something billion naira debt, nobody says petrol in Naira. And this debt is as a result of petroleum consumption locally. So how much of our goods we pay for this debt? I've said several in your students and elsewhere that we had a good in terms of energy resource management, and it didn't start today. It's always been there. Nobody fully understands the mathematics of energy consumption and subsidy in Nigeria. I stand to be corrected. I'm not happy about this. No one is happy. It's our country, and nobody will come from heaven to come and solve the problem for us. We Nigerians will supply and solve our challenge or problem as a country. I know, and I'm saying from here, I know for the fact that nobody knows the accurate amount of liters of petroleum product that is imported. Nobody has an accurate figure.
And that one would say, Prof, that's a little dramatic. My apologies for butting in. One would say that that's a little dramatic, going by what Kayla revealed to us earlier, that from the conversation with Mr. Falana yesterday, that trucks that depart from any depot should be tracked. But unfortunately, it would seem that is not happening. Consequence upon which which is the basis perhaps for which you are saying that we don't even know how much, what's the number of consumption, how much consumption of fuel and all of those things that we are coming to. So we have that major challenge on our hands. And I'm wondering how come that is, particularly when, according to Mr. Falano, the contract has been given out and it would seem like we're just paying lip service and beating eyelids at that. That's on the one hand. On the other hand, you may want to add to that, is there a possibility of an energy convergence in Nigeria where if one fails at any given point in time, there's another one that automatically takes over and as a national policy, so that we know that as a nation we continue to be a producing one and not a consuming one?
Thank you very much. The energy convergence is already ongoing. In other countries, you see a lot of cars now, they run from electric cars. Nigeria is now deploying aggressively.
All right, Prof. We'll have to, I think we lost Prof there. Okay.
I'm here.
Okay. Go ahead and complete your thoughts, Prof. Yes.
I know there is a lot of policy. I know there is now deploying CNG, compressed natural gas.
Mm-hmm. Are you still there? I think you might need to unmute. Okay. All right, Prof. I think we'll get the points you're trying to make there. So, all right, we'll have to anchor at that point. Professor Yemioka is an SAN designator and also Professor of Energy and Electricity Law, giving us his thoughts on the government's plan. First, that subsidy for universities, I think it's a public universities and hospitals, and its possible implication, as well as the planned $800 million investment under the Presidential Power Initiative, how the government is targeting 6,000 megawatts at the end of this year. So, fingers crossed if that will happen. So, Prof, we do thank you for your time this morning.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so Business Morning is coming up next.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you, Chamberlain. Welcome to Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. We do just about 30 minutes of business before we head back into the Sunrise Daily studio. We'll start from the global space, but today we're starting from Nigeria, telling you about the Naira, how it fared at the close of last week's trade. NAFEM, we say, witnessed improved offers in the market. However, NAFEM still depreciated at the close of trade on Friday, lost 4 Naira 63 kobo, and that's about 0.29% to close right there at 1,598 Naira 56 kobo. Opened at 593 Naira. But for NAFEX, that crossed over to 1,006. Remember that last week, we did see the Naira cross a drop up to 1,600 on NAFEM. Recovered somewhere on Friday, but still really close to that. But I guess the good thing is the fact that it's still hovering around 1,005 and 1,006. Breathing the sigh of a little bit of stability and certainty, obviously, for decision making for businesses. Now, the new Chief Executive Officer of the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, Mr. Tunji Bello, says this is his first outing. He says that the agency is concerned about inflated market prices nationwide. He had an interview with our current affairs program, Inside Sources. He mentioned that these concerns prompted a stakeholders meeting before the commission would implement strict measures against violators.
Consumers, and I've seen Nigerians in general, they are feeling the pinch of high inflation, of high prices here and there, and so. So there's need to come in. As FCCPC, know our responsibility. We are supposed to be responsible for promoting competition in the market and for also protecting the consumers in the long run. So what we are saying is that there are situations where you have people fixing prices here and there, contrary to what's supposed to obtain. And we say, okay, let us engage the traders, the retailers, the wholesalers, and every sector, those who are responsible for letting goods, allowing goods into the markets. And that's what we have come to do. Yeah, and we have listened to them, we have heard their feelings and so on, which is a very good feedback for us. What we are trying to stop is the exploitation. We are not stopping people from doing their normal trade, from making money from what they trade. After all, they are in business to be able to make one gains or the other, as long as they are legitimate. What we are against is the illegitimate surplus or profits that people are doing. And there's a gang up already, and we're trying to prevent those gang up from happening.
So that, of course, has generated some reactions. One of that is from the Center for the Promotion of Private Enterprises, CPPE. They've warned the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission, FCCPC, to avoid acting as the price control agency. This follows that recent ultimatum to traders to lower prices. The CPP argues that FCCPC should focus on promoting competition and protecting consumers' rights instead of managing retail prices, leaving inflation issues to monetary and fiscal authorities. Meanwhile, the FCCPC, in a statement, has clarified that its directive aims to prevent practices like price gauging and not to control prices. The FCCPC acknowledges the economic challenges and reaffirms its commitment to fair competition and consumer protection while working with stakeholders to address broader economic issues. All right, and still talking about the economy now, as Nigeria navigates complex landscape of economic challenges and opportunities, stakeholders have come together to dissect the forces shaping the country's future. According to the Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian Economic Summit Group, that's the NESG, Dr. Tayo Aduloju, Nigeria is on a growth trajectory. However, he believes that food inflation must be tackled to ensure sustainability. The Nigerian Economic Summit Group is reviewing the first half of 2024 at this meeting with the private sector. The group believes that the 68 basis point gross domestic product growth to 3.19% in the second quarter of the year, compared with 2.51% recorded in the corresponding period a year earlier, shows good signs. The panel here believes that the number could have been better if threats to supply of food were handled.
As it is with barley, there's a similar opportunity if we can grow it locally. And we've tried to do that. We've actually kicked off that endeavor in Jigawa, in Kano, a number of the northern states. But what our challenge has been that the best and the most optimal locations for growing barley are inaccessible. And they're so inaccessible because of the insecurity.
Challenges motivate innovation, and this has happened in dealing with security.
Everybody these days tends to be in charge of their own security, as it were. So what you work with is we have local vigilantes. We'll tell the people in the community that, listen, this is your community. This is where we're farming. So it's incumbent upon you to make sure that your security is important, as important to us, must be important to you. So we have about 35,000, outgrowers who work with us, but we have local vigilantes who take charge of that security system, or the security architecture in that area. Again, government supports with the military and, of course, the police.
Food supply is not the only focus. Issues hindering rapid economic development, as well as key considerations and the way forward for implementing the essential reforms needed to catalyze Nigeria's economic transformation, also makes up the agenda. At the end, the NESG believes that Nigeria has bright chances.
We are on a growth trajectory. Lots of work is required, especially because the sectors that historically were drivers of growth have slowed down still due to macro pass-through risks that were encountered due to macroeconomic volatility. More importantly, to signal going forward that government needs to double down on the big structural reforms. Agriculture and food security remains priority number one.
The tips and optimism shared here is expected to reflect in the results of the second half of 2024. So that's it, Nigeria's economy first half, and optimism for the second half from the NESG. Now let's do oil from the global space. Prices extended losses today, with investors weighing higher OPEC Plus production from October against a sharp drop in output from Libya amid sluggish demand in China and the United States, which are the world's two biggest oil consumers. Do remember that the features for October had expired on Friday. So for September expired on Friday. So that of October is what we're reporting from today. So let's look at the prices for Brent. We see 57 cents shaved off for Brent. That's 0.7% to close or to land at $76.36 a barrel. That's for Brent for Nigeria, while WTI of the United States is down also the same percentage, $73.05. And we see closing of gap here between the Brent and WTI. Not a very common scene, but that's what we're having at this time. Now, the losses of 0.3% decline is what was recorded in both last week, 1.7 for WTI, 0.3 for Brent. Now, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries and their allies, that's OPEC Plus, they're set to proceed with a planned oil output hike from October next month. 8 of OPEC Plus members are scheduled to boost output by 180 barrels per day in October as part of a plan to begin unwinding their most recent layer of output cuts of 2.2 million barrels, while keeping their other cuts in place until 2025. In Libya, that's where you have shortage of supply now. The Arabian Gulf Oil Company has resumed output up at 120,000 barrels to meet domestic needs, while exports are still halted. Engineers disclose this information after a standoff between factions that shot most of the country's output. And we know that the problem here is the leadership of their central bank, and that has caused some trouble in the country. Now let's come to our own oil supply, and NNPCL has been receiving some bashes since they released this report acknowledging recent reports regarding the company's significant debts to petrol suppliers, which has placed considerable pressure on the company and poses a threat to the sustainability of fuel supply. This is contained in a statement that was signed by the Chief Corporate Communications Officer of NNPCL, Mr. Olufemi Shuneye. A company, however, it says, assures Nigerians that in line with the Petroleum Industry Act, the PIA, NNPCL remains dedicated to its role as a supplier of last resort, ensuring national energy security. They're actively collaborating with relevant government agencies and other stakeholders to maintain a consistent supply of petroleum products nationwide. Now, of course, you have seen the petrol queues everywhere. I know when this started, even on Business Morning and other program, Business Incorporated, we had analysts who say that this was because of debts being owed to suppliers that has disrupted supply of petrol, PMS. But the NNPC had not either spoken or affirmed that. And so now they tell us, after weeks of queues on the road, that they're being owed. So is this, I wonder what we should be expecting following this. But we've seen an intensified queue. I don't know if you've been out there this morning, you would see that the queues have intensified, obviously, with this news that they shared yesterday, this statement they shared yesterday. Nigerians have become more desperate. And of course, the filling stations themselves, I'm sure they also do some other things about this. Not a very good scene. We know in Libya, when a couple of days of a shortage of supply, the head of the state oil was sacked. Well, I guess that hasn't happened now. Obviously, also following these former candidates of the People's Democratic presidential candidates, Atiku Abubakar has asked NNPC to list. And then on our programs here, we've discussed the issues around inefficiency running NNPCL. That's weighing, we had that conversation on Friday, weighing the country down. I wonder if we would find solution to all of this in the nearest future. Now let's discuss this and other issues with Mr. Oji Odewezue, the Managing Director and Chief Executive Managing Consultant and Chief Executive Officer of Flame Academy and Consultant Limited. Mr. Odewezue, good morning.
Morning, Ini. Nice to have you again on this show. And I'm sending you greetings from the city on 1,000 hills.
Yeah, Mr. Odewezue, you're not seeing our queues. You're in Rwanda, but I know your family is here.
I felt the queues, horribly before I left a few days ago. We are all in the same mess together, and we're hoping that God will save us through a renewed and a born-again NNPC.
Yeah, I wonder what you think a born-again NNPCL would look like. But first of all, this admittance, after a lot of analysts have pushed this out there, what does it mean really? Does it mean that since they're saying that it's supply costs, should Nigerians be expecting that price of PMS per liter will increase? I know we've paid up to 1,000 for a liter, but at the NNPC stations, we've still been doing 568, at least in Lagos. Should we expect an increase following this admission of debts being owed to suppliers?
Well, the unfortunate reality is that Nigeria is getting refined petroleum products at much, much higher price than we all think or we are all made to believe. Because as Naira continues to depreciate due to the fact that we know that FX inflow has exacerbated or got worse because of the FX issues we are facing. The reality is that the subsidy we were told that was gone has not actually gone. And, to save face, NNPC and, of course, the federal government have found it very difficult to own up to the issues that we're facing. So you now find that NNPC, when they make money from the royalties and taxes from the IOCs, the international oil companies, they end up, wasting the whole money in trying to import the same products, the refined product. And hence, not only are they having challenges getting this product down to Nigeria, we're also having challenges getting funded as a nation, having revenue gaps because of NNPC's major role in supplying government with that kind of revenue. So we have gone from a point where they were claiming there was a supply chain gap. That is, we were hearing mother vessel to daughter vessel issues and all kinds of things. And now the reality is facing us, that the price of this commodity, a very important commodity in every nation of the world, the price is getting worse and worse, and it's hurting the state-owned, even though now private major dealer in that product. How do we move forward? Do we go back to engaging major oil and gas trading companies like Arungu and the rest of them, who also have the capacity to find these products and then find a decent and transparent way to handle those gaps in prices? Because in my own view, it might become very difficult to increase prices again right now, even though that's the eventual reality. But because of the way the subsidy was removed quite suddenly, even though it's a very bold policy that we must commend this government for, but there were not structures on ground to remediate or soften the effect on people. We have thought that by now, government should be engaging seriously with all the labor groups and everybody to see how can provide reasonable palliatives. For example, apart from allowances and minimum wage that has been done quite commendable, even though some of us have our opinions about that amount of 60,000. How can federal government, use some of the gains we've got so far, gains in quote, because it's still a net loss? How can we use that to bring the cost of transportation down? Because the major mode of transmission to inflation is cost of transportation. Energy cost, brings about, and not just transportation, but energy usage in the country. But if you want to deal with the transportation, how can government begin to work with private sector to provide incentivized movement, low-cost movement, apart from train, but buses in all 774 local governments in this country, adequate route being covered, and of course with the other systems we have in place, there won't be excessive cost of movement. But once that happens, even the Gary producer, the farmer in the village will double their prices, which is what we've been experiencing so far. So while NNPC is dealing with this price issue, let's engage on these palliatives before we can now expect that the prices held at 568 or so by NNPC, and of course 600 and something and more than that by other stations, can begin to moderate or be discovered at a better level. So it's a big challenge, quite all right, but I know that NNPC can do it if we begin to think Nigeria right from this moment.
Okay, think Nigeria, NNPC, but you talked about the alternative and the palliative, but we also see economic climate investors moving their capital away from carbon-heavy industry like traditional oil and gas and away from Africa. Sadly, in addition, as a result of, you also have the issue of course, oil thefts, destruction of distribution pipes, insecurity, intractable community problems. We've seen IOCs, divest from their onshore and shallow waters. So this, of course, is another aspect to look at. But I mean, we also have this applaudable thing that Arungu just did, acquiring or completing the 100% acquisition of Ajib. And we wonder what this part of the scenario can do to help this challenge that Nigerians are facing at this time.
The Arungu deal to acquire the Eni's Ajib oil company, that's Nigeria's Ajib oil company now, is a landmark development that if our government, our political leaders can harness that opportunity, the whole oil and gas landscape can change for the better. I know a number of those are in the offing, but Arungu has shown foresight, clear vision, right from the past 2 decades. They have consistently positioned themselves to invest more and more in the oil and gas sector, particularly in the upstream. And that was a clear vision they expressed. When they acquired ConocoPhillips in 2014. Can you still hear me?
I can hear you, Mr. Demis, I can hear you.
That story of It's a story, that confirmed that if you are, a visionary and you stay focused on what you want to achieve, you may have troubles in between. But if
all right, it does seem like we're having a little bit of technical issue with Mr. Demezwele. Let's take a break. We'll come back, and hopefully by then the network with Mr. Demezwele will be okay, and then we'll continue the conversation. Let's take a break right now, and we'll be back. Welcome back. We're still awaiting the re-entry of Mr. Ojidemezue to complete that conversation. But while we wait for him, and hopefully the network will be friendly to us, and we'll have him join us again. Let's tell you a little bit about what happened over the weekend at the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria. They have 174 new members that were inducted into that body. And of course, these are individuals that ought to be representing the body both in the micro bank and other aspects of the financial industry in Nigeria. Of course, they've been charged, but let's tell you the story.
731 new members inducted by the Chartered Institute of Bankers of Nigeria, CIBN, during its 2024 second string induction in Lagos. With the theme of the program, Unlocking Your Potentials, Positioning for Next Levels, the message of ethics and professionalism in banking operations and excellence towards efficiency and customer satisfaction was emphasized by the president of the CIBN, Professor Pius Olariwaju.
As from this moment, they are now the goodwill ambassador of our great institute, and they should represent the institute where they are going. And thank God for the message. The key message every one of them should tell you is that they should continue to sparkle. We believe that the challenges are there in the ecosystem, but if they are determined, if they are forceful, if they continue to improve their intellect and everything, they will achieve greater results.
Professor Olariwaju noted that the banking industry is rapidly evolving with new technologies reshaping the foundations of financial services, thus the need for continuous learning for professional growth, networking, and career advancement.
Professionalism, integrity, in the system. And I also admonish them that one of the pivotal way of making a great exploit in your career path is for you to be ethical in whatever you are doing.
The president used the opportunity to highlight that factors necessary for unlocking potentials include the adoption of a growth mindset, understanding the evolving landscape, embracing technology, and building a strong personal brand.
Unfortunately, it doesn't look like we're able to get Mr. Demezwele back. We would try to get him perhaps later on today or tomorrow. We'll hope to be able to get him back. So let's look at the numbers, the market numbers, see how it closed last week. We see, thank God for a positive close at the close of the week. So it's 0.63% is what the all-share went up by. But we're still around 96,000. We've done better than this. Remember one day in this board, we had 100,000 and above. But now we have 96,579.54. Equities cap at 55.478 trillion naira. That's the market cap. And then for volume dropped for the week, while value and deals were positive for the week. A lot of deals took place last week, more than 50,000. That's a whole lot. And value at 53.04 billion. Looking at the sectors now, banking did well. Zenith really thrived last week. Still in the market and catching investors' interest. I think they'll soon be out of the market. So we saw banking 1.96% in the green. Consumer goods looking even much better than that. 3.48. Industrial goods marginally up. Insurance, various CARP and all of that. We've seen them gain grounds and catching investors' interest in the past week. Oil and gas. We're talking about O&O right there with Mr. Odemezue. We hope to complete that conversation maybe later on today or tomorrow. I wonder what's wrong with the network in Rwanda. So oil and gas up 8.5%. O&O is a major driver of it. Since they completed the acquisition of Ajip Nigeria, they've just been catching investors' eyes. So we see that Seplat also joined. Japo Gold is another one that's been also, investors have been friendly towards. All through last week, we saw all of that, even though a bit of profit taking, but it's a quick recovery and then back up. So oil and gas up 8.50%. I wonder if it's still a good time to get on board or if it's too late. I wonder, but we know how it can go. So top gainers for the week: O&O, Deep Capital, McKnowles PLC, and all of that. Top losers last week had Transcorp Power, MTN Nigeria, Universities. Remember, MTN Nigeria dragged the market down. I think it was on Wednesday, put the market down, lost 9.91%. Top trades: Consolidated, Hallmark, various cap. So you see why the insurance counter was so much in the green there. Consolidated, Hallmark, a Veritas Capital. Access Holdings representing the Fugas right there. Unfortunately, we've been trying. I mean, my colleagues behind the scene are trying to get Mr. Demizwe. We're not able to get him, but we promise that once we can get him on, we'll have him either on Business Incorporated or we'll try to do that tomorrow. Thank God we do have windows for business conversations. But for now, that's much we'll take on Business Morning on Sunrise Daily. Thank you so much for being a part of it. But don't go anywhere, because Chamberlain, Kayla, and Ayo are standing by to give you more conversation, current affairs conversation. Join them. No, just look at us.
Welcome back to Sunrise Daily. Yes, indeed, we're turning attention to nutrition and food security related matters. We're joined now by Adesoa Kimboro, who is the country director, TechnoServe Nigeria, and sitting beside her, Dr. Nubua Medugu, who is a senior consultant, clinical microbiologist, and head Department of Medical Microbiology and Immunology, now University of Nigeria. Thank you both for coming on this morning.
Thank you very much.
Well, we do know food security is a thing. Malnutrition, to the stats coming through from UNICEF, not exactly encouraging. So incidentally, both institutions are working together to see how this can be addressed. So talk to us about it.
Sure. So our organization, my organization, TechnoServe, is an international NGO. We have over 50 years of experience working across different countries in Latin America, Southeast Asia, and Sub-Saharan Africa. And we currently work in agriculture and nutrition to help solve the issues of malnutrition. Now, of course, malnutrition, even though we've been working in this area for years, is still a major challenge in Nigeria and in sub-Saharan Africa. 1 in 5 children globally is stunted. And for West Africa and Nigeria, that's 1 in 3. For anemia, women of reproductive age, about 26% of them are anemic and don't get the adequate nutrition they need for their bodies. Vitamin A, iron, folic acid, which is important for the natural development of the body, is not being consumed in the recommended quantities in the countries in sub-Saharan Africa. And so obviously we're working with smallholder farmers to improve productivity of nutritious crops. In our local food systems, we try and improve access to these nutritious crops to ensure that people are getting the adequate nutrition they need. And in addition to that, we're also trying to support food processing companies to fortify the foods that they produce to ensure that the foods we eat every day, edible oils, flour, wheat flour, sugar, salt, and more recently rice, is fortified to ensure that people get the adequate micronutrients.
Are you getting encouraging response?
Yes. So we've actually seen an improvement in the fortification levels of these foods, which are widely consumed. We eat them every day. We use oil to cook our food, to fry our foods. We use the wheat flour to cook, to bake. And so we're seeing an improved volume of fortification to the compliance levels that's required by the federal government of Nigeria in Nigeria.
How does your institution come in?
Okay, so Now University is actually a center of academic excellence when it comes to research and innovation into nutrition. So as part of our key goals, we aim to train the next generation of public health experts, medical doctors, and generally youth to take the message of nutrition holistically to the globe.
I want to be able to talk about things that you want to accomplish with this collaboration. NutriVision, that's TechnoServe, and Now University. What are some of the things that you're planning on? I'm going to start with you.
Sure.
What are some of the things that you're hoping to achieve with it?
Sure. So the NutriVision event is a Pan-Africa Youth Dialogue. We're bringing together youth, experts, researchers, and stakeholders that have been making an impact in the nutrition space for years. We're bringing them all together online to have a dialogue and a conversation about the innovations that have had an impact on nutrition in Nigeria and across Africa. We're also going to be having a conversation with Bill Gates, who, of course, has been funding innovations in nutrition and has a passion for nutrition and has been doing this for years. And so this collaboration with Nile University is to ensure that we're able to bring together multi-stakeholders for a dialogue to create the drive, the passion, the motivation that will make changes and differences in nutrition, in the nutrition landscape for years to come.
So what kind of, go ahead.
Okay, so for us at Now University, we also look at it similarly. We aim to improve nutrition in general by looking at it from multiple levels, but especially at the level of community engagement. So as Adeso said, we do have experts coming in, we have youth, we have students, and then we're engaging with the community. For us, engaging with the community is really key because that is the only way you can have sustainable solutions. So we don't really want to be like the organizations that set out to create toilets for a village they thought needed toilets, only for them to come back subsequently and nobody is using the toilets. And they're like, why aren't you using these fancy, expensive toilets we have made for you? And they said, if we use your toilets, what will our pigs eat? So we want to be very holistic in our approach, and we believe that NutriVision gives us a platform. And again, in NutriVision, you realize that we're going to have a lot of youth that are really, really tech savvy and are really enthusiastic about solving these problems. So as an academic institution, we're hoping that youth will ask questions they've never asked before. They are going to give us answers that we never thought before, and we're going to test new hypotheses about the problems of nutrition.
In fact, what kind of conversations should people look forward to having on that particular day?
Oh, it's going to be a really, really full day if you ask me. One of the conversations we're going to have is really going to be around tech innovations and how tech innovations play a key role in improving nutrition. I'll give you an example. At Now University, we're very excited about one of our award-winning innovations. So this is the students and faculty that have made AI-powered drones that are able to do aerial surveillance of large farmlands. So what you would usually require 20 people working several days to identify, these AI-powered robots are able to do it more efficiently, more effectively. Therefore, the farmers are able to immediately curtail whatever problem is on their farm, thereby improving food security.
I mean, I want to be able to talk about that, which is food, the question of the day, food security.
Yeah.
How is this event and all the plans and the goals you want to achieve, how is that going to work, considering the fact that we're dealing with a food insecurity situation in the country?
Well, we expect that as a result of this dialogue, we will inspire the youth to want to create innovative solutions to solve the problem of malnutrition, whether it's going into agriculture, whether it's going into the nutrition sector, whether it's creating or working with or collaborating with others who are already working in this space to scale the innovations that already exist. So these are some of the things. Now, we're not being prescriptive about what solutions come out, but we're expecting to motivate all those that are participating with us online. We're going to have people not just from Nigeria, but all over the African continent. And we're hoping that we will inspire the youth to be the change that they want to see.
Are you likely to try? Well, do you think youth will be inspired to take to farming at the end of the day?
Well, we've already said this is an agricultural, health, and financing platform. Okay. And so all those who are already interested in that space, have a passion for that work, are those that we expect to be participating.
All right. My colleague Ayo also has questions for you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Chamberlain. Well, my question, madam, and let me begin with you, Ms. Akimoro. My question to you will be, first of all, since we are talking about sustainable agriculture, is the sustainability plan of this sustainable agriculture initiative that I'm looking at, first of all, what's your thinking and what's the plan?
So to make solutions sustainable, they have to be locally led and locally developed. And we constantly support the local development of solutions within the communities in which we work. In addition to that, we have a lot of market-led and market-driven solutions where the market systems are driving sustainability. Of course, we can't expect the government to do everything. And so we work very closely with the private sector. In all of our programs, we engage the private sector. We work with food processing companies, for example, to fortify their foods, and they take ownership for the fortification. We have what we call the MFI index, and we also have what we call the Millers for Nutrition, where the millers themselves, that are private sector companies, are at the forefront. They are the driving seat of fortifying the foods that they produce and the foods that we eat. And so we believe that these are sustainable solutions that will produce and deliver lasting impact.
I'll come to Dr. Medugu in a moment, but while I'm still with you, Ms. Akinworo, in terms of sustainable agriculture here, and I like the fact that you talked about initiative, innovation, technology, and all of that. Perhaps one of the challenges is to, first of all, remove the veil on the faces of people when we hear agriculture. Many people, once you hear agriculture, you're looking at brown stands and green leaves. When we talk about agriculture, we're talking about the local approach to it. What's the initiative? What's the innovation that people should look out for? What's the mind shift that is necessary so that we can see agriculture differently and produce differently?
So there are several things. One is looking at agriculture as a business. So agriculture should be seen as a source of income that can be productive enough to pull people out of poverty. In TechnoServe, we believe in business solutions to poverty, and we believe that people are very enterprising, very hardworking, especially these smallholder farmers that are working on their land to produce crops. If people see it as a business, they can then generate the income, the profits that they need to make it more sustainable, and also just to make sure that, we improve productivity, we improve yield, and many people can be fed from a small plot of land. So, for example, the average smallholder farmer in Nigeria works on half an hectare to a maximum of 2 hectares of land. That smallholder farmer can feed a large number of people if his income and his productivity and his yield is increased. And so we work with these farmers to make sure that they're able to improve their productivity, they're able to improve their yield. And then when it comes to technology solutions, there are a wide variety, but I can just give an example. So one example of a technology solution that we're supporting farmers with is weather forecasting. And this is to ensure that farmers know ahead of time when the rains are going to come, what the volume of rain will be, what the precipitation levels will be, when the rains are going to stop, when they need to plant, when they need to harvest, when they need to apply fertilizer, how much fertilizer they should apply, and things like that. We also, and this is also just to mitigate the issues around flooding and loss of crops or loss of lives if flooding were to occur. In addition to that, we also support them with regenerative agriculture practices. So regenerative agriculture simply means that we're working on the soil, but we're at the same time monitoring the fertility of the soil and trying to make sure that we are having a positive impact on the environment. So watching the use of fertilizers to ensure that they're producing organic crops, improve multi-cropping, using cover crops, minimum tillage, just to ensure that the quality of produce that they produce at the end of the day is high quality and in the volumes that they require.
Well, thank you so much. Well, Dr. Madugu, part of what we hope to achieve today is to stress the importance of public involvement in discussions that can lead to meaningful change in our approach as a country to food security and all of that. So as an institution, academic institution, you have young people learning in school, male and female. Now, how can we make agriculture attractive to them? So their face shifts from the brown sand, the boring hoe and cutlass of agriculture, to the more appealing perspective of agriculture that we want them to have for it to be sustainable.
Okay, yeah. So while I think that is one approach, encouraging people to come into agriculture, not everybody in the end is going to do that. And there are so many ways to attend to this problem. So we have a multi-pronged, multifaceted approach at Nile University. So what happens is, irrespective of whether you're studying agriculture as a primary degree, you're in the Faculty of Sciences, health sciences, or even in the arts, we ensure that you have nutrition as part of the core courses that you take. In fact, before you graduate, you need to go through the SDG desk. And as you know, at least 9 of the 17 SDGs are directly related to nutrition. That ensures that irrespective of the careers that our young graduates choose to pursue, they are well knowledgeable in nutrition as a whole. Now, we have a very vibrant College of Health Sciences, and that is where I think we have a lot of the impact. Because if we say nutrition, it all boils down to the kind of malnutrition that we see in persons in Nigeria. We have, I think we're one of the countries with the highest levels of malnutrition, as Adesowa has said. And unfortunately, some of the mortalities that we see, it is said that 2,400 mortalities every day. In fact, it is said that it could have doubled in 2024. A lot of them are due to preventable infections. So we have a vicious circle of malnutrition, infection, just perpetuating itself and causing more havoc to the society as a whole. So we like to think of it more holistically.
Understandably. 2,400 people dying, children in particular, dying daily from malnutrition-related cases is definitely something very, very staggering. So concerning this event that you are collaborating with the people from TechnoServe on, what will attract young people? And I'm talking about young people, one, because they are the ones who are more in your schools, and secondly, because they are the ones that are going to ensure that our sustainable agriculture initiative is indeed sustainable. So what is it that will make it interesting for them to stay in that space, be it as core, in an area of core competence, or something that they an add-on, just as you've talked about it?
Yeah, I think one of the main push is if they see the repercussions of or the negative effects of lack of food security or malnutrition all around them. And I'll tell you this, whenever our medical students go out for ward rounds and they see malnourished children that are infested with worms, have bacterial infections, that are resistant to like 20 different antibiotics, sometimes the antibiotics to even treat that child is not available. You have to start looking for other sources or playing around with antibiotics. For me, I think that sort of spurs my students into thinking of how to solve the nutrition problems. Also, because they are in a mix with other students, sharing those real life stories that they see. Aside from in the hospital, we're also in the communities of Kuchiguro, for instance, and Karimajiji, where the havoc malnutrition is wrecking is really high. So the students are naturally spurred to have solutions, and they integrate within these communities. And that is one of the main push I have seen that is driving students towards how do we solve this nutrition problem, how do we improve food security.
Perhaps an understanding might also help. Okay, well, yes, well, Madam, you jump in just a second, but let me also have you respond to this one as part of your contribution. Young people are important in this conversation. They are the ones who will take over the baton, so to speak. So how do we make it something that they, the young people, would love to embrace, Ms. Akimboro?
So I think that, what makes things attractive to people varies. Sometimes it's passion. And there are people that have passion in different areas. So some people have passion, and not everybody needs to go to the farm and pick up a hoe to till the soil. Some people's passion is in technology. They may be interested in developing technology solutions. They can develop technology solutions that address the issues around food security and malnutrition. Those technology solutions can address and identify gaps that exist in the farms where farmers are planting. Some have a passion for food, production of food, and some can go into processing of food, sourcing of food, exporting, and things like that. Some have passion in government, civil service, and some may go into the government and they can support with policy development, policy creation, and implementation. And so there are a wide range. Some will be researchers, and they can do research in the area of nutrition. So, and some may want to be entrepreneurs and make profit. There are opportunities to set up businesses and start businesses that address food insecurity. So there are so many different areas in which people can actually, or the youth can actually get involved. They're innovative, they are young, they are energetic, they are dynamic, they have a lot of ideas, and this is an opportunity for them to put their ideas to work. And each of these ideas can address different components of the causes, root causes and underlying causes of malnutrition and food insecurity.
So just before we go, what do we expect for this conference in terms of how do people participate?
So it's an online conference, and it's going to hold online. The link is online.africa.com/NutriVision. And so you can go on that link, click on it, register. It starts tomorrow, Tuesday, 3rd of September at 3:30 p.m. And so as many people as log on to the link can participate and watch, and we'll have interactive sessions for people to send in their questions as well.
All right, so does this partnership end what? After the conference, month after? What's the plan moving forward?
Oh, definitely not. It is just starting, by the way.
Oh, I see.
Yes, so this is an opportunity for us to collaborate on innovative solutions. Both organizations, TechnoServe and Nile University, have been working in this space for years, And there's the opportunity to leverage the work that we have been doing as well as the work they've been doing. So they have a lot of technology solutions that they've implemented or set up for agriculture, and we've been working in the agriculture space. So we intend to collaborate to leverage both our strengths to develop more solutions and to scale the existing solutions that we have that are working.
Yeah.
All right.
So, okay. So in addition, we also plan to increase our research capacity between the two organizations, in addition to extending our outreach focus outside of Abuja. So at now, we have at least 6 active sites, that's now university, that we engage with in the communities. But TechnoServe has quite a lot outside of Abuja. So we plan in the future that we will have a synergy where we have more outposts to reach and more innovative solutions to try out along with the communities that we serve.
All right, Dr. Nobua Medugu, Senior Consultant, Clinical Microbiologist and Head, Department of Medical Microbiology and Immunology, now University of Nigeria, as well as Adesua Akimboro, Country Director of TechnoServe Nigeria. Thank you both, and all the best to you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
All right, just before we go, we do have a message or two. Pastor Law Alpha says about the political party conversation we had. He says, most unfortunately, all the political parties in Nigeria are not healthy. Individual interests to be calling shots have overtaken the love to see Nigeria work. The procedures leading to the emergence of political office holders are questionable, he says.
Festus Akimboyewa sent 2 messages, but I'll start with this one. He says, there is no doubt that there are many unhappy and anxious people in the PDP, and the bigger challenge is coming when it's time to choose your 2027 presidential candidate. And, or if they expel Wike, looks like some of the leaders of the party don't know what PDP should look like. The party must come together to maturely address these challenges and anxiety now, or face another punishment in 2027.
All right. Thank you all for your messages. That's it today on the program. We'll see you next time. I'm Train Balunasoff. Goodbye.
Have a great week ahead. I'm Kayla Megwa.
And I'm Ayo Makinde. Do have a blissful week.